I'm gonna actually take the con and kick this thing off. Tim, you ready to roll?
I'm ready to play.
Okay, thank you, Emmett, for making a nice seamless experience for us. Welcome, everyone. I'm Joel. Welcome to this time of the week we call the weekly briefing. This is where Tim and I, and maybe some other people that are much smarter than us, get together and share what's going on in the industry, what's the hot button issue people are talking about, what's the news that you need to know about. And Tim, this week is this thing that we do, we're doing it, I think, about 2 times a year now. It's kind of a big deal because we're sharing some numbers. What's going on?
Yeah. Hey, first of all, good to see you. The weekly briefing is always a fun moment for us RevThinkers to kind of put our thinking cap on, share some data that we have or knowledge we have or conversations we're having, and give you a sense of seasonality, what's going on beyond your own office space, and give you that touch points of what's happening in the real world. Yeah, and this week it's interesting because we did kick off our Q4, so our team started asking, well, we talk about quarter 4. What do we see? What trends are we looking at season to season? And what we know is traditionally Q4 is a very big season for people. There's a lot of sales that happen. I think corporate end of the year, they're spending money, we're capturing the money. So in processing that, we really started thinking about what is necessary, honestly, beyond quarter 4 into Q1, and what should we be doing now to protect ourselves in Q1? And that started us pulling data from everywhere we could to find out what the trends look like. And lo and behold, there's some good opportunity here for people.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that we have this luxury, right, where we can take the data that we see on a daily basis and anonymize it and aggregate it and share it with everyone so that there's some basis of comparison, right? Like, we're seeing this trend. Are we like everyone else, or is that different? And I love giving people this visibility because I know in the years I was running my studio, I never knew anything. I had no idea what other companies like my size were doing in terms of revenue or other metrics that I was trying to keep an eye on. So I think it's a really cool thing that we get to do this. It's a privilege, right, Tim?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're putting comparisons out there that people can kind of measure their success and their trends against what we're seeing, what we're calling industry-wide, right? Because we represent agencies all over the world, all different types of work that they're doing, everything from live action production companies, motion design companies, event companies, agencies, marketing, buying, strategy, selling agencies. But when we look at these kind of global trends, we're trying to give people a sense of what the opportunity is. So not always will these numbers match your experience, but it might reflect an opportunity for you to lean into something, recognize a new marketplace, or really get a grasp on what's happening to you in comparison to what the world is seeing. And I think especially like the word recession is really scaring people. So we're really trying to look at the data and keep close eyes on it. Jake and Emmett, the team, are really doing some good analysis to make sure what does recession mean to our industry? How's it really affecting us? And really what work should we be doing if there is a recession coming? But we're kind of seeing different behaviors, aren't we? It's not what the CNN is reporting every night when they're talking about recession.
Yeah, well, it's not that simple. Well, here's what I'm thinking, Tim. Maybe I'll play the part of the business owner, because I want to know, first of all, like whenever I see something like the selling season, right? Anytime we're talking about sales, me as an owner, I'm like, well, wait a minute, what is that about? I'm going to show up and ask questions and see what that topic is. But really the data that we're sharing today, it spurred that thought. So what was maybe the beginning of this conversation within our team that said, hey, this is a good moment for us to take a look at this information, share it, and encourage people with what we're seeing?
Yeah, for me, because when we say there's a selling season, what it really also means is that there's a buying season. On the other side, agencies and your clients are looking for you to accomplish some work before the end of the year. There's a need from them and an opportunity for you. But if I'm going to think about this from a strategic business owner point of view, I can say I'm going to have a really great Q4, and I could kind of save up all the nuts for the winter in a way. What should I do? How would that work? That really, if I know traditionally I have a Q1 that's slower, how do I pass along the winnings of a quarter four into a quarter one? But also I'll say this, like if you wait till quarter one to solve your sales problem, and it's not a buying season anymore, you can try all you want to, and you're not going to accomplish it. But if there are some tactics that you have in place and people that you can hit in Q4, this is the moment to lean into it. There might be a little bit more pressure, a little bit more stress, but it actually kind of levels out your playing field throughout the entire year.
So case in point, I can remember my agency always had a really strong fourth quarter. It was usually our biggest quarter of the year. But then when we would roll into the new year, I always had this question called, well, are we gonna have to pay a lot of taxes on that, that revenue? So, be cool. But I would also say, well, should I take distributions in that fourth quarter and, sort of make myself whole as the owner? Because I sort of underpaid myself salary and paid myself distribution. So is that my moment to get what I've got coming to me? And then historically, that first quarter was always so nerve-wracking because you go into it thinking, well, maybe first quarter will be just like fourth quarter. And then usually about the third or fourth week of January, you're saying, what the heck's going on? Nobody, all these New Year's resolutions that people are talking about, they're not coming my way. And sometimes those budgets weren't approved by my clients until February, sometimes even in March. And that was often our worst quarter of the year. So what are we seeing, or what's our encouragement here today?
Yeah, let's dive into some data, and we'll give you a sense of, we're going to look at the first 3 quarters of this year, and I'm projecting Q4 to give people a sense of what I've looked at historically, just looking at we pulled the last 3 years of data to give people a sense of what we think is going to change in Q4, and then be able to think about something as we go into 2023. I'm going to share my screen here. You are seeing that, right, Joel? Yeah.
Yep, we're seeing your entire screen.
Great.
Let's start with this. Just share your Google screen, because otherwise we're seeing all of your Zoom notifications.
Hold on a second there, too.
And by the way, welcome David Sheldon Hicks.
All
right.
How about this one?
There you go.
Does that seem right?
Beautiful.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So first of all, when we're looking at this first graph here, I want to kind of understand what we're representing in this graph. What we're looking at here is sales data. This sales data is not representative of always income or revenue, because income and revenue can have its own challenges as time. Hold on a second, I just lost something there. There you go. So if I plug in revenue or income, what I'm looking at is the payment structure of when I got paid the first payment and possibly the second payment. What I'm looking at here is sales data to say, what are the times of the year that we actually win the most projects? And you can see here, this is aggregated across a few years here. Q1 is usually the slowest of the sales season. It has the lowest hit. We kind of speculated after this holiday season, it's after the spending season, this is the new budget year. And if I was in charge of an agency or a department, creative department, I was trying to figure out where do I spend my money. I don't want to spend it all at the very beginning of the year. I kind of store things up, not knowing what's ahead of me for the year. So I'm not allocating all the funds in a normal way in Q1. So traditionally we have a slower season. Q2 picks things up. I believe it's to kind of prepare for the summer, and knowing that I'm going to take a vacation in the summer, I want to kind of get some things done. So this is like a end of the spring kind of a push here. Summer is traditionally slow. People are on vacation. There are family things going on. But interesting, the last 3 years, Q3 has picked up an average in comparison to other. We have 15 years worth of data. So in backwards comparison, our Q3 seems heavier. And my thought in Q3 being heavier is just that the OTT platforms and other kind of distribution networks are not on the same seasonal schedule as traditional television or film releases. And especially in the last few years, there's a major disruption. Everything was disrupted, but the schedule and release dates also changed, the marketing, the push dates, and other related items. So Q3 has kind of really been very different to us. And then Q4 is this big hit. And again, the speculation for me there is it's a big hit because you're looking at end of year cash reserves that have to be spent. And there's also the Christmas season. There's the end of year push. There's award season. So we're trying to get people to view things so that our television show, our film wins awards. So there's a good reason for there to be a lot more money spent here. So looking at sales, this is a traditional look.
And Tim, just to clarify, would is this sales data multiple years, or is this the last 12 months?
Yeah, I aggregated some of the information I'm giving you over the last few years. These first three quarters are representing what we're seeing right now in 2022.
Got it.
The Q4 is speculating, looking at how there's a usual growth and kind of a step up in Q4. So this is an average growth between Q3 and Q4 I put in here for this chart.
Got it. Which and that's so interesting because this very much matches a pattern that, you know, I see anecdotally, but I always love seeing it. Oh, wait, when it's really representing a lot more data, it's surprising how much it lines up. And I don't know how many people here this lines up with your reality, but of course, feel free to chime in with a comment or a question as we go along here. So what else, Tim? What else did you see here?
So that's our looking Q4. So again, if I was thinking about sales and sales strategy today, what would I do differently? I would lean into this Q4 big time. I'd recognize this is the time to sell. Not that all seasons are our time to sell, but this is a moment where I know that it's going to get easier to fish, right? There's more fish in the sea in a way. So I want to kind of lean into it. I want to have a different strategy, a different way of thinking about it. And quite honestly, when it's a buying season, people will look at you, look at your reel, have conversations with you more often than they will do when it's quiet for them. Because they don't feel guilty. They have work to get done. They're open to, well, I don't know what's out there. Who could I give this work to? When it's slow for them, they feel a little guilty talking to you, but they don't really have something to give you. So this really is like almost a marketing and sales push season. And unfortunately, we already got started. So you have just a few weeks, really, 12 weeks, 8 weeks. You're gonna have to brush off and do something different. And Joel, I think that's why you and Matt kind of put together this idea of like, we should get people into the shortcuts of selling so they could really take advantage of this.
Yeah, we're gonna do a workshop just to talk about only that. Like, what are the shortcuts that we can take to jump into the, get ahead of this as much as we can, even though we're already into the fourth quarter. So we'll talk more about that towards the end of the half hour.
So look at this one. This is the other one that I thought was interesting. So I put it up here. I have a few more items on expenses down here at the bottom, but the profit one is really curious to me. What I love about looking at this profit is, look at Q1. Q1 profit is traditionally low. Now, that makes sense to me. If revenue is low, but you're maintaining the usual expenses, revenue drops, your profit drops with revenue, your expenses are somewhat just flatlined there, right? But Q2 has this bump in profit also. So if you look at sales, Q4 is the greatest sales return. Q2 is the greatest profit return. What that tells me is that our company, after coming out of Q1, is a little sensitive to building and growing. So we kind of push ourselves. We go a little bit harder, and we're maybe even making up for lost time in Q1. But one thing that's so curious to me is like, if you knew you could do this, that means you have a lot of control over your business, right? The fact that you can hold things back, still deliver, get things done. This is a really, really interesting and great way of recognizing the opportunities you have to control your business. And then Q3 and Q4 really level themselves out. So even if the revenue pushes up, right? Our sales pushes up in Q4, our profit stays the same as Q3. So very interesting behavioral pattern we're seeing here when it comes to profit.
And let's just note that's total profit, because what I'm seeing on the right, when we look at profit as a percentage, there's something really different and peculiar.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking at, this is the total profit growth. So total there, but this is a profit as a percentage of your sales. So even more, even when this season is busy, what we often do is give it away more. See how we're missing this little triangle right here that should be level? What we're really doing is there's a compromise. I almost feel like, Joel, how do we teach people that in the buying season, you can actually hold back? You don't have to compromise. You don't have to like give away more profit that season. Now, if you're scared because you've been looking at numbers very differently in Q3, right? It is great Q2, you get your Q3 numbers and you think, oh my gosh, we took a hit. Let's give away work. In a buying season, you're just taking a big bite out of your own company.
Well, here's my experience is what happens is when the work starts to come in and we're winning, there's our first temptation is just to say, take it all. And then the next temptation is just get it done, which is code for, I don't really care what you do, producer. I don't care how much you have to give back to the client to keep them happy, and just get it done. Just get it done because we're making so much money. I don't care, right? And that what you see here is, well, that's being sloppy.
Yeah, or what the actual hurt can be. So, you know, my hope is when people are looking at these charts, they're starting to think strategically and a reality of what is necessary to keep the business going instead of reacting, having an emotional reaction, and therefore guessing and making bad decisions and taking a big hit. So these profit numbers tell us a kind of a different story, right? So we can look at a selling season, which again, this is the moment to take advantage of. I totally believe in that, but maybe more discernment, maybe higher qualifying for your clients, or if you're going to take everything, how do I actually keep control of it? Much like I kept control here. Look at Q2, I have control over it. And Q4, for some reason, I've made different choices to not have that control.
Yeah, that sloppiness. I think what's interesting is producers are only going to spend the money you give them. So if you're holding to your splits, and again, maybe adjusting once or twice a year, sometimes quarterly, there's really no reason to just get sloppy and hand them more money than the client is paying for, so to speak. So it is curious, like, wow, it's quite a dip in that fourth quarter.
Yeah. And I would always like, if you're running the factors method and you have control of your splits, this might be a moment to take a look at your company and recognize where you are on your projected splits. Are you hitting the mark? And if you are, trust that number going into Q4. Qualify those projects the same way you can and produce those projects within those margins that you have put into place. There's no reason to compromise, right? That's why we have the splits in place. That's why we're using that as a control and visual and decision-making metrics to really kind of look at those projects upfront, be very proactive, and then make the right decisions as we go through. But I am also an emotional being. I totally understand responding at certain times emotionally and wondering and panicking, but you're looking at the results of that panic.
Right. By the way, I'm seeing a couple of questions about basically, is this a reflection of cash versus accrual versus sales? So Tim, you might just revisit what you mentioned earlier in the half hour. But yeah, I think I'm also going to hear you say any minute now, Tim, if I know Q1 is generally one of my worst quarters, or maybe my worst quarter of the year, that's the time to be extra diligent in that fourth quarter, because I'm essentially going to store away some nuts for that first quarter.
Yeah, so to answer the first question, this is cash. The reason I'm looking at cash right now is I want to understand what the behavior is, so I can see sales numbers and cash. I can see returns and when it comes to cash more clearly. Accrual, if you don't know what that is when you're matching the revenue to the expenses, but you can actually defer some of that revenue later on. If that was true, I couldn't see the sales numbers. And what we were picking up at RevThink is the opportunity for sales. So now we're looking at qualifying leads, understanding those projects, looking on a cash basis allows us to see that more clearly than an accrual basis. But yeah, the opportunity really to kind of lean into proactively and roadmap yourself forward, I think is what I'm encouraging everyone to do here. I'm going to show you this one last chart here too. So expenses 25, 27, and 19, right? So this is my first 3 quarters here. What's interesting is that this is a percentage of sales. So that's what this 19% is, so percentage of revenue. You can see that, this number here actually is the wrong number. I meant to change this earlier. This is actually the 27% number is not right. This is actually 17% we're looking at here. But the chart here is really kind of telling us like what we're looking at when it comes to revenue generation. When we have basically imagine your expenses being the same, your burn rate is the same. When revenue increases and decreases, you get these bumps and trends like this. So expenses as a percentage of sales is very interesting to me because it stair steps up. And again, I think this again is a reflection of working with agencies that I know, understanding what I'm kind of seeing in the cash flow pipelines that I'm used to looking at. What I know is that in Q1, we pull back when it comes to expenses. We're really kind of doing the best we can in that thinking, okay, we're going to be responsible in this process. Q2 and Q3, I'm adding onto my team. I'm getting busy in Q2. I react to that. I maintain that same group of people in Q3. So now as a percentage of revenue dropped, my expenses remain the same. So my percentage goes up because I don't necessarily drop all my Q2 people in Q3. And in Q4, like you said, Joel, I think this is just like, I got to get it done. What happens right here though, imagine like from this point, the top of Q4, panic. What do? I get rid of a lot of people. I go back to, because if I put this Q1 right here, you would see like there's a major step down when I do that. And I'm trying to encourage people. I want you to think linearly over all 12 months of what it means to run your business. When you drop people from a Q4 to a Q1, you drop that retained knowledge. Now, I'm not saying, you watch other weekly briefings where I say, listen, you've got to drop people, right? You have to keep yourself in balance. So I get that, but this is a moment, beginning of Q4, think strategically, who am I going to have in Q1? So now I'm going to spend the next 3 months investing in the right people so I understand what my Q1 looks like now and making the decisions of freelance and staff and retaining some freelancers or letting go of individuals that I knew weren't performing well enough. This might be the moment I start shifting things around. Because in the buying season, there's a lot of opportunity to make up for lost time and lost work and kind of do good things there.
So Tim, can I add a narrative here? Because if I'm this company, if this is my expenses that I'm seeing up throughout the year, what's happening is as I go through the year, I'm going from uncertainty to certainty. Like the year is playing out. I'm starting to see how things are going. And like you said, yes, when fourth quarter, all those sales start coming in, I'm almost like, yes, I'm finally winning. I can finally spend that money and hire that person, move into a bigger office space, whatever it might be. Then I probably have a moment in January when I'm looking at the whole year and I say, oh crap, that's not sustainable. And then I overreact, right? And remember the goal setting exercises we did back in January where we were asking everybody, like, what's your dream? What's the goal? How are we going to translate this into an actual plan? I know what it is. It's that feeling of, yeah, but I'm not going to make that investment in January or February or March because I'm not sure. But then later in the year, you see, wow, we're having a good year. You give yourself too much permission to almost indulge. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's some good insight. There is the impulse to say, hey, I'm going to make my decisions based on a calendar. So, hey, I'm used to usually making my decisions in January. I'll wait till January to make those decisions. But imagine this. Imagine sitting down right now and looking at a 12-month factors and ask yourself, what does the 12 months look like if I started at the beginning of Q4 and went to the beginning of Q4 next year? Would I think differently about what my choices would be? Because I'm looking at an immediate hit of revenue that I can carry forward into the next quarter and move things forward. And can I flatline some of that roller coaster experience I'm having with my business, with project awards, spending, with expenses, and so on?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm thinking of some companies that we work with that don't have a calendar year that, right, their fiscal year doesn't line up with their calendar year. And it is interesting how that brain works a little bit differently than the one that's on a calendar year, because there's these certain seasonalities that I guess are baked into us since the day we were born. Oh, you're on mute, Tim.
Sorry, there was some background noise there for a minute. No, I think you're right. When we start a business, we're starting based off like what our bookkeeper taught us, what our CPA taught us. So they start structuring us based on tax calendars. And I almost feel like we lean too early into our business, worrying about tax and tax prep and letting taxes dominate all of our financial decisions. That's why I invented the factors method, so people could reorganize expenses and have it match how they're used to making project decisions. So the same can work here too. Like if I put myself on a calendar of what's it like to run a production company, not what it's like to file taxes, could the seasonality of a Q4 start make you look at 12 months very differently than a January to December kind of climb?
Yeah. Well, now everyone's going to be wondering, okay, I want my fourth quarter revenue to look like that chart, but I don't want my fourth quarter expenses to look like that chart. So how do I create those two realities?
Yeah, so number one, I would sit down with my production team, and especially if you're selling right now and bidding projects, this is when you make the decision. If the projects are already bid, it's a little bit chunkier to kind of like decide after the fact to do different splits. What we know about producers is that they're amazing. Whatever budget we give them, they'll figure out how to make those resources match the need. And we have a subjective deliverable, and we can keep that in mind creatively on how we're choosing to produce a project, what decisions we're going to make, and how we're going to get our client to align for those decisions. So there's still a lot of flexibility in the spending after the fact, but before the fact, qualifying the project, bidding it, this might be a chance early on to say, oh, I'm going to change the splits. I'm going to change our margins on these projects just for this 3-4 month season right now, and see if I can't flatline my revenue and get a better understanding of growth and better opportunity to invest in my business for Q1. Because here's what's really great, right? In the buying season, in the busy season, talent rates also go up. Everything's in demand. You're in demand, your clients are deliverables are in demand, and therefore your talent's in demand. When Q1 hits and your competitors are not RevThink clients, which I can't believe there are any agencies out there that aren't RevThink clients, but apparently there are, and they're not listening to this advice right now, they're going to be slowing down their talent acquisition, letting some talent go, and you're going to be in the cash. You're going to be in the know, and you can lean in, invest, and grow your business when everyone else is shrinking their business. Now you have a really strong team. Your Q2 will hit sooner. You'll win projects sooner because you have a better, stronger creative team. Start winning those projects, and you'll be able to have an amazing, Q2, Q3, and then wait till Q4 next year, right? You'll double up.
Well, I mentioned earlier, because we've got 2 minutes left, so Matt Taylor, he's not here because what time is it in Australia? Wait.
It's 8 a.m. Matt just
Oh, well then
8:30.
I was going to say 8:30. Okay. Well, sorry, Matt's not here. But Matt and I are going to answer the question called, okay, if I need this boost, I want to quickly start going after the opportunities that are available to me in Q4. What's the shot in the arm? And it's really simple. It's like these 4 things we want to say that are like, it's like a focus on genius. It's get your positioning right. Get really serious about qualifying, and then of course it's selling and the sales conversation. But it's four things, and we're gonna workshop that. I think I'm really bad at go into the community and inside of events. You'll see when the date is, because if I say it and I say it wrong, that's really bad.
And you're in Spain. I think your date and timeline is scrambled in your brain right now, Joel. It's not
exactly. Well, but here's the other reason I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm leading one of these workshops for like the Americas and Europe, and then Matt's going to lead one for Asia and Australia. So that way we don't have this problem of you having to get up at 4 a.m. to listen to me yammer or something like that. So we're going to do 2 of these. It's free. We want everyone to learn these basic principles and give you a shot on the arm and help Q4 be awesome. But you don't have permission to go spend it all, right, Tim?
No, please don't. And I 2 quick points. Maybe Emmett, you can find the dates and post it. Oh yeah, thank you. You just
there it is.
Emmett read my mind.
Yeah.
But Joel, you corrected me when I said this earlier. It's a workshop, right? It's not a webinar, or it's not like a weekly briefing.
Right.
You're actually going to workshop these solutions with people next week. There's a different format to getting people to pull that up and write up their own strategy and plan when it comes to this.
Yeah. No, there's totally like a worksheet, and you're going to show up and you're going to fill out the things and make sure that you're really clear, because the biggest thing I want to give people is confidence. right? Like the day that you feel totally confident and clear, you're capable of anything, right? But if you're lacking confidence, like I'm not sure what to say, I'm not sure where to go, what to reach out to, whatever, if you don't know what you're looking for, you lack confidence and you're not going to move forward. So yes, it's a workshop. Show up and be prepared to do some thinking and some writing, and we'll make sure that you walk away like with that nice shot in the arm.
Yeah, which is great, because we don't usually give away workshops, but I kind of love this format, and I think this is the time to do it. So I appreciate you guys doing that. Okay, well, that's a wrap. I know people have more questions. If you have more questions, please join Rev Community. We're there. I'm there. You can ask me questions directly. Happy to answer them. If there's something happening in your business that doesn't match these trends, or you want to know something specific, Joel, me, Jason, Emmett, Connor, whoever you can find on community, drag us into the conversation. We're happy to do it. I know I have like 5 factors meetings next week. I don't know what happened, but everyone's really asking these questions. So I know I'm hammering through those next week as well. So it's really great.
Much better than the last week of December, right, Tim?
Please don't wait till last week of December.
Yep. All right. Well, look, thank you everyone for being here. I know this is always an interesting topic when we share these overall industry numbers. So if you missed anything and you want to watch the replay, that's also in the community and available for you. And thanks for being here. We'll see you next week for another week of briefing. Tim, peace out from Barcelona.
Good to see you, Joel. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Enjoy Sioux Falls.
Thank you. I will.